Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Healed and Chilled. And today we have yet another awesome, amazing, and wonderful special guest. And you guys already know how I like to do it. I like for the guest to have control of the narrative, especially in the beginning. So, if you would, in your own words, from your own point of view, can you please introduce yourself and we'll dive right into the interview?
Wonderful. Yeah, my name's Teri M. Brown. I am an author, but that's like just a very small portion of who I am. I'm an author, I'm a podcast host, I'm a mom and a grandma. Um, I love to do bargain shopping. Like that's one of my
Mhm.
favorite things in the world is to find a good bargain. Um, I love to walk on the beat. I love to ride bicycles. I play bridge. And I'm really, really into mentoring others, especially like
Mm.
women and young women. I've just
Mm.
noticed in general that young women seem to be kind of in that weird space where they're not sure who they are and what they're allowed to be.
Oh,
And
yes.
I love talking with young women about that. Um, I don't know if you like what more do you want to know about me? Do you want me to like dive into my story or just
Yeah, wherever you
dive
feel
in?
called.
Okay.
Yeah, go right
Yeah.
ahead.
So I, as a child, said I wanted to be an author, but I also said I wanted to be an Olympic ice skater and a
Oh.
brain surgeon. And I'm afraid of blood, and I am the klutziest person you've ever met. So I don't think I really knew what I wanted. I knew the kinds of things I liked.
Mm,
I
yeah.
liked the idea of being a doctor, but I
Mm.
didn't know what that meant. But I loved books. I was that kid that would read books in the middle of the night underneath the blankets with the flashlight, and
Oh.
my mom would tell me go outside and play because I was inside reading, and so I would push my book out onto the window ledge, go get my book, and then read outside. So she would leave
Hmm.
me alone and let me read. So I've always had a thing with books and I loved books, but life kind of gets in the way. And, when I went to college, my parents were not going to pay for me to get a degree in writing, creative
Right.
writing. That would have never happened. They were of the opinion that I should get a degree in something that I will use for an occupation, and they could not imagine that being an author would be one of those things. Um, then I got married, I had children, I ended up divorced. I got remarried. That was the worst mistake of my life. He turned out to be emotionally abusive. And I lived
Ah.
in that relationship for 14 years because I didn't want
Mm,
to be divorced a second time. Like, oh, it just killed
mm,
me that I made two mistakes in a row.
mm,
So while in that bad relationship, I started working for small businesses, writing their content for their websites. This started in about 2000. And you figure at that time, the web was really new. There were a
mm-hmm.
lot of businesses who were putting out their content for the first time. They were starting a website, and what they were putting out there was horrible. And so I realized that I had an opportunity to still be able to be at home with my children, which is what I wanted,
Mm,
and be able to bring in an income, which is what we needed. So I started working with small businesses, and there was a part of me that really, really wanted to try my hand at a novel. But I'm living with this
mm,
abusive guy, and there's just no way that I'm going to put myself out there yet again because I'm already being told I'm no good, and I can't handle that again.
mm.
So I keep it all to myself. And in 2017, I got out of that relationship and words started falling out of me. In 1 year, I wrote four manuscripts.
Wow.
Now, they weren't any good, but they got me started. They helped me start learning about character development and learning the things that I needed to learn in order to write. But I wasn't telling anybody I was an author. I wasn't telling anybody because I still didn't believe in myself. I met my
Mm,
now husband, Bruce, which could be a podcast all by itself because I was never getting married again, and yet here I ended up marrying him. Um, and he talked about wanting to ride across the United States on a bicycle. And
mm,
I had been wanting to have this huge adventure because I thought doing something big and bold would prove to the world that I had value. Little did I
Mm.
know the world was fine with me. It was me that needed it, but right, exactly. And so I asked him, I said, is that something you're going to talk about until the day you die, or are you going to do it?
Mm.
He said, no, I'm going to do it. And I said, count me in. And I had no intention of marrying him. I just figured we could go on an adventure. I didn't have to be married to go on an adventure.
Right,
We ended
right.
up getting married and then going on the adventure. And we decided to ride on a tandem bicycle. And the reason we chose a tandem was because I had not been on a bicycle in 40 years. And
Mm.
Bruce was an avid cyclist.
Okay.
And there was no amount of training that was going to get me up to where he was. So on a tandem bicycle, he can't go faster than me and I can't go slower than him. We have to work together. And we
Mm.
just figured that this would be the way to do it. So in 2020, we rode from Astoria, Oregon to Washington, D.C. So 3,102 miles. Yeah. And
What?
at the end of that trip, I thought, oh my gosh, I I just rode across the United States on a tandem bicycle. I can do anything.
Mm.
What is it I want to do? It's not a matter of can I do it, but what?
Mm.
And I thought, I want to be an author. And 14 months later, my first novel came out.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay, that was wow. Okay, that was a lot.
That was
So
a lot. Now you get to
yeah.
figure out what
So
question you're going to
uh
ask me next.
yeah. So my first question is, it sounds like your experiences shaped your mentorship based on what I heard. And something that you said earlier was you help young women. I think you said something along the lines of like know who they can be or what
Yeah.
they're allowed to be, something like that.
Allowed to be
So
how they to
yeah, go
figure out
ahead.
women women in general are often given these messages of you can be anything you want to be as long as it fits in this little tiny box.
Yeah.
You know, out loud we're being told you can be anything, but everywhere else when you look it's like everything except that and except that except this, and
Hmm.
you have to be a certain way, and you have to be like prim and proper and quiet, and don't be too effusive, and make sure that you keep your emotions in check and all
Yeah.
of these other things, right? And so as teenagers in particular who are just trying to figure out themselves anyway, and then they have all of these things that are being thrown at them trying to tell them what does a teenage girl look like,
Right.
right? And I don't know, I like working with young women and even adult women who are still stuck in that spot, because a lot of adult women that I speak to, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70-year-old women who still feel stuck in that, well, I'm being what I'm supposed to be.
Mm.
Right? Not what I'm supposed to be because I feel it deep in my soul, but what
Mm.
society tells me I'm supposed to be, or what my husband tells me I'm supposed to be, or what my family, or what my religion, or what my neighborhood, or whatever it is. We've got all of these things. So I love working with people to help them see that they can be beyond the boundaries that other people set for them.
Mm.
Now,
And
I am not against traditional roles. I was a
right.
mother, I was a stay-at-home mother, and I loved it. And I am so glad that I did that. I would never not want to do that. But I also know it's not for everyone.
Hmm.
And I did it because I wanted to,
Mm.
right? And so it's different. Like you can choose anything. If the traditional role is what you love, then by all means do that. But if you're in a role and every morning you wake up and think, I hate this role, but I have to do it, then those are the women I want to talk to, or the
Mm.
girls that I want to talk to, and help them see that do you have to?
Yes, the do you have to
Yeah.
definitely like really hit because I think, especially in society, we get so used to like we're doing this and
Yeah.
this over and over again. And then sometimes you kind of hit a wall and you feel like you're stuck because you don't
Yeah.
necessarily see an out. So, did you ever come into a time where you felt like you were stuck? And
Oh, I've
then
been stuck a lot of times.
yeah. So how were
Yeah.
you able to realize that you're not as stuck or you're not as shackled down as you realize, and how were you able to get out of that cycle?
I think for me, I'm not I'm not as quick as I would love to be. I wish that I could see it, realize it, and move on from it. And instead, I
Mm,
beat my head repeatedly against a wall until I finally realize that this is stupid and I need to move on. And sometimes it takes years. In that relationship, it was 14 years before I
mm,
finally said enough is enough is enough.
right.
Um, I think that sometimes you just have to say, what could life look like? Like if this thing wasn't here, what could it look like? And then maybe
Mm,
find people around you that can support you in that. Even support you in just talking about it, even if you're not ready to do anything about it yet. Someone who will listen to you talk about a dream that you don't normally talk about or whatever. To realize that, there are things beyond the boundaries that either others set for us or that we set for ourselves. Because
hmm.
sometimes the boundaries were my own.
Yes.
Like I made the decision, I can't do that.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden I'm doing it. And it's like, well, would you look at that? Because we're far more capable than we often give ourselves credit for. Fear
Mm,
will stop a lot of people dead. Like I can't move forward. I can't do that. And then if you could find a way over that fear, sometimes it's changing how you talk to yourself.
hmm.
Sometimes it's finding a partner in crime who will, come along with you and do that scary thing.
Yep.
Maybe it's a therapist. I mean, I had a really wonderful therapist who did a lot in helping me understand who I was and how I could move past that bad relationship.
Mm,
Maybe it's a pastor, maybe it's a friend or a family. Maybe it's a book, that you read something. But if you feel stuck, then that's when you need to start looking around you at who or what is around me that can help me get unstuck. Because the
mm,
truth is we don't have to feel stuck.
mm. Yes, and I think that that's so accurate because it kind of reminds me of, I think there was like it was like a picture, and it was of a bear who used to be in the circus. And so he was not in the circus anymore, but that thought process that he was stuck in the cage. So he just kept walking around in circles and
Yes.
circles. And so, and part of what I'm working through right now is like when I've noticed a pattern with myself, like when I have a fear, it doesn't show up like a normal fear, like when I see others. For me, it shows up as, well, I don't want to do that thing anyway. Like,
Right.
well, I don't
Right.
I don't like that anyway. But like
I don't like it.
really,
I don't know.
yeah,
Right.
like I don't want to go hang, I don't want to be over there with them anyway. But like really, I do want to do it, but there's like a fear of rejection. So
Right. And so when you say, I don't want to do it anyway, you're protecting yourself. You're giving
exactly.
yourself an out so that if
Hmm.
someone were to look at you and say, why aren't you over there with them? You can say, I didn't want to.
Yep.
Right. Right. And so you're denying the truth and you're covering it up. I used to do that with things that I wanted to try that I thought were like kind of beyond my abilities, my natural abilities. For instance, I'm not good at sports. And so instead of trying it, it was better trying it and failing, which I didn't ever want to fail. It was
Right.
better to just never try it.
Yep.
And then you could say, well, I didn't even try that
Hmm.
because I didn't want to fail at it. And yeah, you kind of have to pull yourself out of that. And now that you've recognized that that's how you do fear, when you
Hmm.
hear that in your mind, when you hear, well, I don't really want to do that anyway, that's when you have to say, stop, check it out. Do I really want to do it? And this is
Hmm.
bad self-talk, or do you not really want to do it? Because it's okay to not really want to do it. But if
Right.
it's bad self-talk, then you need to reframe that and say, and say it for what it is. I'm afraid to do that. And then look at
Mm.
that. What is it about that that makes me afraid? And then
Okay.
figure out a way to reframe that as well. For instance, no one believes this anymore because it isn't obvious to anyone, but I grew up horribly shy. I was so shy I couldn't talk to anyone. It, things terrified me. And I
Mm.
learned little little by little how to not be so reserved.
Mm,
In my heart, I'm still afraid.
mm,
So I go in to talk to someone new, and in my mind is screaming, "You can't do this. You're afraid. You can't do this. You can't speak to other people." And I
mm,
have to remind myself that yes, I can.
mm,
You know, yes, I can. Well, I had this thing the other day where I wanted to go get my books in a particular bookstore, and I was terrified to go in.
mm,
I couldn't. I was like, oh, I can't go in there. What if, what if, what if? And then I finally reframed it with, currently, your books are not in that bookstore.
mm,
If they say no, your books will still not be in that bookstore.
mm,
Nothing else has happened. You will be in the exact same place. The place that you're in is not scary. Therefore, if they say no, then nothing bad has happened. But if they say yes, you are now in that bookstore.
mm,
So you kind of have to find a way to reframe it for yourself. So, you're afraid to go with that group of people. Well, you're not with them right now. And if you go over there and they reject you, you're still not with them,
mm. Oof.
right? But what if they say, yeah, we'd love to have you come over? Well, now you have maybe met someone new, or maybe you've done something different, or whatever. And so you kind of have to find a way to trick trick your afraid brain into saying, oh, okay, well, this isn't so bad after all.
Hmm. I could see how you would be a mentor. That makes sense to
Yeah.
me. That makes sense.
Well,
Yeah.
and then once again, maybe it's if it's something like, going to a place, going in a crowd, going to a party, that kind of thing. Once again, having a partner in crime is wonderful.
Yeah.
Find a friend that's willing to go with you, because walking in not alone feels so much better.
Yeah.
Even if you know that as soon as you get in, you'll go your separate ways, there's just something about not walking in by yourself. So figure out what is the thing that's scaring you,
Mm.
and then come up with an idea of, well, for that, then I can do this.
Yeah, very, very, very well said. So I'm wondering, from your bicycle excursion, how has that? Because I can tell you right now, I've never met anybody else who has ever biked across the states. So you are the only one I know. So how did that working up to it and then actually doing it, how has that changed your perspective of life in general and of yourself?
Yeah. So prior to, you figure I got out of the bad relationship, I'd been told for 14 years that I was no good.
Hmm.
And even though you don't want to believe it, you begin to,
Yeah. Yeah.
it just starts to affect you.
Hmm.
I'd gotten to the point I couldn't even make simple decisions without having to like agonize over it. And
Hmm.
simple decisions, I mean, should I get crunchy or smooth peanut butter?
Oh, wow.
You'd
Yeah.
stand there in the grocery store and it'd be like, oh, what if I get the wrong one? Well, what difference does it make?
Right.
Right. But
Mm.
I had gotten to that point. So I went on this trip, and you have to remember, I've not been on a bicycle in 40 years. I'm At the time I was 57 years old.
Okay.
I am not athletic. I was not in shape. I was overweight. I I was everything one shouldn't be to be a cyclist.
Mm.
And I got on the bike, and we did a lot of practice riding. It's not like we just one day said we're going to go. I mean, we did a lot to prepare, but still it was really hard for me. This was not easy, way outside of my comfort zone. And as you begin to succeed, you make it over the first mountain range. You make your first day that's, 60 miles, which is way more than you've been before. Doing these things. And then when you hear the voice in your head that says you're not good enough, you stack that against,
Mm.
I just went over a mountain range,
Mm.
right? And I think because of that and the time. that you have on the back of a bicycle to think and think and think. There's a lot of thinking time, right? I mean, you can talk with your partner some, but you're riding,
Mm-hmm.
and you're concentrating on that. But eventually your mind starts to spin around and you have a chance to go over things in your head and start to put them in the right boxes. Like this is not true. We're going to throw that out. This is true. We're going to put this in this box. This belongs, way deep under the bed somewhere, and we hope it never comes out again because we don't like that one at all. And you
Mm-hmm.
you start to figure things out. Bruce was an excellent partner. And for instance, I had gotten to the point that like when it was time to get a motel room, I would stand with the bike and make him go in because I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't go in. You had to make decisions and whatnot. Well, slowly but surely, he started having me go in. Maybe it was
Mm-hmm.
once a week and then it was twice a week. And before long, it didn't matter which one of us went. I could do it again. You start doing things and realizing, oh, yeah, I'm capable. Who can't go in and get a hotel room? This is easy. But I started at a point where I couldn't do that. In
Wow.
fact, the first time he asked me, "Can you go in?" He said, "I'm exhausted." I don't think he was. I think he knew I needed to do it. But he
Mm-hmm.
said, "I'm exhausted. Can you go in?" And he hands me the credit card, and I was like, and I mean, I almost cried.
Yeah.
I was like, "I
Yeah.
can't, I can't, I can't, I can't."
Yeah.
And he said, "You've got it."
Mm.
And so by the time I was done, I believed in myself again. I recognized,
Wow.
gosh, I can do things.
Mm.
I'm fully capable of doing
Yes.
things. Bruce would tell people all the time that the person he started the trip with and the person that he ended with were two different women.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. That I almost started, I'm sensitive. I almost started crying. I'm a very sensitive person. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, and so I think that the trip for me, and I think this is true for anyone, you don't have to take a 3,000-mile trip to make this happen. But I think that when you force yourself outside of your comfort zone,
Mm.
do something that is just a little beyond your normal, that nice little safe box that we sit in and we say, isn't this comfortable here? When you
Yeah.
force yourself outside of it and succeed and realize, gosh, I can do that. Or even if you fail, that you get back up again. Because I can tell you there were a lot of times during our practices that I failed miserably. Like I wasn't good at what we were doing and I was trying to
Yeah.
figure it out, and I'm overweight, and it's hard, and oh, my rear end hurts from this seat and all of the things, right? And but it isn't about the fact that it was a hard day or a hard time, and
Mm.
I didn't do well at it. It was that the next time it came to do it, I got up and did it again.
Mm.
And I think that when
Yes.
you do that over and over and you realize not only am I capable, but I'm resilient,
Mm.
I can, I've got that stick to itiveness that's going to make me finish a project when I start one. And you start realizing these things about yourself.
Mm.
You come out the other side and you say, I am strong, or I am
Mm.
whatever it is people have told you you're not.
Mm. Wow.
I think the other thing I really learned about myself is I'm highly emotional. I can
Same.
cry at the drop of the hat. I also laugh very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I see bright colors and beauty, and I'm just that person. And I grew up hearing you're too emotional, you're over emotional,
Yes.
too over, too
Yes.
over, too over, too over. So I
Yes.
used to really dislike that about myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
would I would get very frustrated with myself when I would start to cry.
Yep.
Or, it would be like, oh goodness, why can't you just be strong? Well, on
Mm-hmm.
this trip, there I cried a lot. We would get to a particular point in the ride, and I was exhausted, and we still had 10 miles to go, and I don't know how I'm gonna make it. And I would cry. And then once I kind of got that big bulk of emotion out, then my thinking brain could go ahead and say, well, I know you don't want to ride, but we have 10 more miles and we can't stay here. So the only way we're going to get this over with is to get back on the bike. So let's do that.
Mhm.
And then I could do it. And at first it frustrated me so badly that this was how I had to do things. And by the end, I realized it's just a process.
Mm.
I'm emotional. I have a lot of big emotions and I have to
Yes.
process them. And then once I process them, then I can go ahead and find that logical space and know what to do. But while my big, freaking big emotions are flying all around me, I cannot be logical.
Yeah.
I can't. And that's okay. It doesn't make me a bad person or a weak person or anything else. It just makes me an emotional person. It's what I am.
Mm.
And that was a lovely thing. It took me 55 years to learn it, but there you have it.
Well, I definitely appreciate you for sharing because I am also an emotional person and I heard a lot, oh, you're too sensitive or you're too this, you're too that. And I'm like, man, I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm just so I haven't got to the space yet where I'm completely comfortable in the sensitiveness, but
Yeah.
this conversation definitely like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that being sensitive, there's some really valuable things about being sensitive.
Hmm.
It allows you to see the world in a different way. I think that can be so fabulous. And then on the flip side, it can be really difficult. It can
Yeah.
be really difficult for other people around you or having to deal with the fact, oh, look, she's crying again. Like, what are we going to do with that? Right. But there's a flip side to everything. Those
Right.
people who are strong and stoic and never show emotion, flip side to that is they never show emotion,
Mm,
right? I mean, people are with them for years and they wonder, did he love me?
mm,
He never said it. He never really showed it. You know what I'm saying? There's the flip side to no matter what we have. And so one of the biggest things I think that women in particular need to understand is, accept who you are. It's okay. Who you are is
yes.
fine. You don't have to be someone else to be okay. You don't have to be
Mm,
prettier. You don't have to be thinner. You don't have to be younger. You don't have to be a certain color. You don't have to be a certain religion. You don't have to be a certain anything. Embrace who you are. And
mm,
if there's parts of you that you really don't like, that you really wish could be, work on those things. I didn't like being super shy. I worked on it.
mm. Yes, I'll give you a signature round of applause. Because that was spot on. And I work with children
Yeah.
outside of this, and that's something that I'm really trying to like get into them, especially now with social media and
Yes.
all of these different things. They see everything that's wrong or everything that could be a little bit better. And I'm like, hey, yes, something can improve, but it doesn't mean it's wrong either.
Well, and it doesn't mean that the effort that you gave isn't valuable.
Mm,
I have a 6-year-old granddaughter who is really
wow.
having some difficulties right now in terms of like she goes to try something and if it doesn't go well the first time, she falls apart, just completely falls to pieces because she just can't stand being wrong. And I
Yeah.
keep trying to tell her, I told her the story of Thomas Edison. And I said, you know about light bulbs, right? And she said, well, yeah. And I said, well, there was a time before light bulbs. And I said,
Yeah.
and Thomas Edison was the creator of the light bulb, and he has a quote that says he knows 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Yeah.
I said, he didn't make the light bulb the first time. And I
Yep.
said, and if he had stopped and cried and thrown a fit and said, that's it, I'm not crying anymore, we'd all still be in the dark.
Hmm.
And so I'm trying to help her see that these things that we call mistakes, these things that we call, I failed, reframe it. You just learned a way that doesn't work,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and reframe it with, this is really difficult for me and I can't do this on my own yet. Who can I get to assist me? Could
Mm.
someone help me find a new plan of action? How would how would someone who understands it attack it?
Mm.
Where should I start to try to understand this thing that is eluding me at the moment?
Mm.
It's fine that we don't understand everything the first time.
Yeah.
And so you're working with children and so they're school age, right? And
Hmm.
and school is to learn something. If you already know it, you don't need to be there,
Right.
right? And so it's okay that the first time and second time and maybe the 53rd time that you still don't understand it.
Yep.
Just keep at it because eventually you'll go, oh, now I've got it. And then once you have it, then you have it,
Yeah, but
right?
yes. Yes, yes, yes. I'm just like listening and I'm like being a sponge and absorbing all of this and also noting some similarities. Because I when I talk to like even my siblings or anyone, the first person I go to is, the guy who made the light bulb, you know how many times
Yes.
he failed? And then
Well, and the thing is it's such a valuable one because he
yeah,
even said, you know, I know 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. And it really helps people because we all know Thomas Edison. Everybody knows who that is, and everybody
exactly.
understands the value of a light bulb. I mean, can you
Exactly.
imagine trying to live in this world with no light bulbs? I mean, it'd be horrible. And so we understand the value of it. And you look at what kind of perseverance. He was doing something that people said was impossible.
Yep.
And yet he kept
Yes.
going and going and going. Like if you're
Yes.
trying to do a math problem, that's not impossible. We know there's an answer to it. We might not be able to figure it out, but
Mm,
we know there's an answer. He didn't know for certain,
that's a
right?
good
He had a
point.
belief. He believed. He felt pretty confident, and yet it had never been done. And so, for all he knew, he was really spitting in the wind.
Mm.
But he kept getting up and doing it over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about the fact that because I'm so used to light bulbs now that it
Right?
was impossible
It was impossible.
back then.
He was told that what he was doing was ridiculous. This is
Yeah.
not possible. We can't do this. Same thing with the Wright brothers when they planned to
Hmm.
get in a plane and everybody was like, do you not remember the old, Greek story where the guy with the wax wings got too close to the sun? Like, we can't fly, guys.
Right.
This isn't possible. And yet, what did they do? They flew.
They
And
did it.
now, what can you and I do? We can go anywhere in the world on a
Everywhere.
plane.
Yep. Mm.
Right. And not only that, but now we have rockets that go places and people
Yep.
have been to the moon and we have rockets that are going out to Mars and all of these other places and doing things because someone said, I don't believe that we can't fly.
Mm. Wow. You're right. You are darn tootin' right. I know anybody that's listening to this is like reflecting, like, yeah, because I think when you try something new and you go against the circle, like, this is what you're
Right.
supposed to be, this is how you're supposed to
Right.
do it. And it's hard because you do step out and you're like, okay, I'm going to try it anyway. And there are like, oh, are you sure about that?
There's the naysayers, right? That,
Yeah.
you're crazy. You shouldn't be doing that. And
Yeah.
and the truth is yeah, maybe you're crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe it won't work. Maybe it will.
Yeah. And my,
And it's worth it. Go ahead and try. The
yeah.
worst thing that can happen is that you end up not doing the thing that you couldn't do.
Right. Yeah, and my aunt always says it takes one crazy person to change the world. And we've
Yes,
seen every
yes,
invention,
yeah,
every advancement has been a quote unquote crazy person who
right. A
changed the
crazy
world.
person, right? Who said, "Now wait a minute, why are we still doing it this way?"
Right.
There's a story that I heard that it always makes me laugh, and it was about this young woman who had just gotten married, and she was making this ham, and she was cutting off the end of the ham bone. Have
Yes.
you heard that
Yeah, but
story?
continue, continue.
Right. So they cut off the ham bone, and her husband says, "What are you doing?" So I'm
Hmm.
cutting off the ham bone. Well, why are you doing that? Well, because my mother did it, my grandmother did it. And he said, well, why? I don't know. It's just what you do. It's how you cook the ham.
Right.
Turns out this husband asks the mother, who says, I don't know. I did it because my mother did it. So he asks the grandmother, and she did it because her pan was too small.
Yeah.
Right. So people tend to keep doing what they're doing and they don't think about, well, there could be an easier way or a new way, or we don't have to do that at all.
Mm.
This woman was cutting off the end of a ham bone, which took a lot of extra work, and she didn't have to because she had a pan that was perfectly big enough to stick her ham in.
Mm.
And so I think that's the mindset that, I mean, question everything all the time, and
Yes.
but when you see yourself doing something and you think, there be an easier way? you
Mm,
know, or if people are telling you something about yourself and you think, is that really true?
mm,
Allow it to maybe not be true. I am not oversensitive. I am just sensitive.
mm. Yes. I
You know,
like that.
the the word over really is miserable
Hmm.
because then it makes me something I shouldn't be.
Yep.
But it's fine to be sensitive, and that's what I am.
Mm,
And I'm only oversensitive to people who don't like to see sensitive people.
yep.
And that's on them. That's not on me.
Mm.
So
Very, very poetically said, by the way. Very, very well said. And it makes me wonder more about like your books and things as well, because that
yeah.
the way that you articulated everything really, but specifically that portion, it just really resonated. So can you take us through like what your books are about and
Yeah.
how that
Yeah.
flows?
So I have three historical fiction novels. The first one is Sunflowers Beneath the Snow. It's about three generations of Ukrainian women starting in the 1970s. The crazy thing is, this book came out 1 month before the current Ukrainian crisis. So
Oh,
it's not
wow.
like I knew it was coming, and there comes the book. And takes a look at these women and their country who are going from communist to free, and how
Mm,
the difficulties of that, and
okay.
how different people saw it differently.
Mm, oh, wow.
Like the oldest generation kind of wanted communism to stay because that was something that she was comfortable with. She recognized what it was, and she may not have liked it, but she didn't fear it anymore because it
Mm,
was comfortable. Whereas the youngest generation was like, you know, out we go, we're going to be free, watch us go, And so to kind of look at how different people see change,
yeah.
and whether you fear it or whether you embrace it, and those kinds of things. So that's that one. Um, it actually has a true story in it. I have a Ukrainian friend who told me a true story. So I wrote 82,000 words of fiction to tell 3 pages of truth.
Wow.
So she told me this great story, and then I made everything up as to how we could have gotten to that spot. And my next one is called An Enemy Like Me, and it is a
Hmm.
World War II genre, but very different. It's about a soldier who is a first generation American. His family is from Germany, and they moved to the United States. They had him. He gets married. He has a child. World War II breaks out. He eventually fights, and he thinks that he is going to fight the Japanese, but he ends up in Germany.
Oh, wow.
And he realizes he's more like the enemy than he is different.
Oh, wow.
So it's looking at war through his eyes, but also his wife and his 4-year-old son as a child and as an adult looking. So that's kind of what that one
Wow.
is.
Okay.
And it looks a lot at things like um, racism, xenophobia,
Hmm.
that because during that time, if you were of German heritage, you almost hid it if you lived in the United States.
Right.
For instance, the town that I grew up in was North Canton, Ohio. Prior to World War II, it was New Berlin,
Oh,
and
wow.
they changed the name. I grew up with
Oh,
the last name
wow.
of Buffmeyer.
Hmm.
Prior to World War II, it was Buffenmoyer.
Oh,
So you see,
wow.
so there was a lot of people who tried to, people who were Schmidts became Smiths. There were a lot of things that
Yeah.
changed to try to fit in. And so I always try to touch on some social issues and things in a way that I think is more palatable. Because if
Hmm.
you try to touch on a social issue dealing with characters of today, then people dig in their heels and everything else. But
Yeah,
if you can look in the
that's true.
past, it's easier to look at it.
Yep.
You don't feel as attached
Attached.
somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly. My third book is called Daughters of Green Mountain Gap. It's set in the 1890s in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina. And
Okay.
I have a granny woman, and a granny woman is a healer who uses roots and herbs and what I like to say is a little bit of mountain magic.
Mm.
She just seems to have that understanding of people and can just do things that don't seem real, and yet it happens. Um, she has a daughter who becomes an actual medical nurse by going to school, and she tries to bring modern medicine back to the community, and it sets up a nice little conflict between the two, as each try to dig in their heels as to what is the right way to heal.
Oh,
When
wow.
when in fact there isn't a right way, because if there's a right way, then we wouldn't have anybody dying from anything other than old age,
Yep.
right? That's not true. We have people that get sick and diseased, and whether they use Eastern med or Western med or herbs meds or whatever they try, people still pass away from disease. So it kind
Yeah.
of looks at that whole thing. But I also have Maggie, who's the granny woman, who meets a Cherokee medicine man, because there's a Cherokee tribe in the mountains of North Carolina that didn't have to go with the Trail of Tears, and they stayed in the mountains of North Carolina. And she meets him and she learns about some of his medicine. And when she tries to take back what she learned to her community, they don't like it,
Hmm.
because the Cherokees were considered savages,
Right.
right? And what are you
Hmm.
doing with that savage medicine? And so I try to once again introduce this idea of this racism and this classism and these other things that happen. Um, then I wrote the book about me riding across the United States on a tandem. And I kept a blog the whole way. So if you want to know ins and outs, everyday stuff, you can go on my website and you can read the whole blog. But the book is called 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure. And
Oh.
these are life lessons that I learned while riding across the
Hmm.
United States. And I pull in stories from the ride, but I also pull in stories from my life prior to that also go along with this rule. Like, there are things that I've been learning for a long time, and it wasn't until the ride that it like really crystallized that, oh, this is the truth. So there's that one. And then I actually have also written a children's picture book, and
Hmm.
it's called Little Lola and Her Big Dream. And it's about
Oh.
a train who wants to be an astronaut train. And all of her
Oh.
friends laugh at her and tell her there's no such thing. So she kind of starts asking questions of older trains about what they did. Children will learn about trains and the different things that they can do. But in the end, Lola keeps her dream.
Hmm.
And what's crazy is as soon as I was done writing that book and I was in the process of getting the illustrations done, NASA announced that they were going to try to put a train on the moon. So in my author note, I say to the children, when I started the book, Lola could not have been an astronaut train.
Hmm.
But when I finished the book, she could have been. And this is why we hold on to our dreams, even in
Yes.
spite of opposition.
Oof.
So,
Yes, 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 and yes. I have so much to say, but I'm gonna keep it light. But I have a lot just going in my mind right now. But yeah, that's amazing. So, something that I noticed as well is that your characters are all really complex. Like they
yeah.
don't just have one. Even Lola the train, like it's not just this is the personality and we're going with it. So, what was it just a natural thing? Like, what is your creative process when it comes to characters? Are you like, because sometimes I hear from writers, it's like the story is coming through, and then other
Yeah.
times it's like you're part of the story. So what is that process for you?
I think I learned how to develop good characters by writing bad ones. My
Hmm.
first my first couple of manuscripts, my characters were very flat.
Okay.
They like the first character that I ever wrote, she was so perfect that by the end of it, she had no art. She was perfect when she was started. She was perfect when she ended. I couldn't like her. How can you like someone that's just perfect? Even though
Hmm.
she had horrible things happening, she always came out of it looking like one of those Baywatch characters that had dived into the water and they came up with their hair still looking beautiful and their makeup not
Hmm.
running. Whereas when I dive into the water, I end up with seaweed in my teeth.
Yep.
Like I needed a character like me.
Mm.
And so that's what I try to do, is not make them me, but try to make them like me in terms of I have good attributes and bad. I
Yep.
do some things really well and I do some things really terribly.
Mm.
I very much try to keep control of my temper, but sometimes it gets the best of me and I say something I wish I hadn't said. Um, I let my characters be real. and do that.
Mm.
And I think when you have a complex character, then when you're reading it, you say to yourself, oh, I I can identify with them,
Mm.
right? There's something about them that you say, oh, I can understand where they're coming from. And maybe you're saying things like, oh, come on, get it together, but now you're rooting for them because you understand what's
Yeah.
going on with them. I think complex characters, I tell everyone that I'm a character driven author. I write character driven fiction. Three of my stories happen to be set in historic times. The one I'm currently writing is set today.
Mm.
So it isn't about the time, it's about the character. It's about where do they need to be in order for this story to tell. The other thing is my characters live in my head and talk to me. And
Mm.
so sometimes I can hardly type fast enough to keep up with whatever the story is. I don't, it makes me sound crazy and like I need to be medicated, but it's just that wherever that creative space in me lives, those characters are in there and they've got this story to tell. And
Right.
as long as I don't let my logical side get in the way, great things happen. As soon as I try to let my logical side get in the way, my characters stand against the wall and refuse to talk to me anymore.
Mm.
They just stand over there like, yeah, you let us know when you're done with that. And then we'll get back to the creative thing. But
Yeah. Yeah, that's similar to how I am with I paint an
yes,
abstract and
yeah,
I never know what it's gonna look like, but specifically when I'm also a bargain shopper, so I like to go thrifting and find old clothes and paint on them. And then like when I tell people, I'm like, well, it the shirt knows what it wants to look like. I'm just
yeah.
doing it. And they're like, what? And I'm like,
What?
yeah,
Yeah,
it knows
it's
what it
like I
wants to
know it.
be.
I know. And then people are like, okay, she's giving personas to shirts. We need to worry
Right.
about her, right?
Right. Well,
No,
go ahead.
well, it's interesting. I just spent in August, I spent 3.5 weeks at an artist's retreat. And
Oh
it wasn't
wow.
just writers, it was artists. So there were painters and sculptors and potters and graphic designers and whole slew of different people. And as we talked with one another over various and sundry events and whatnot, I realized how similar my writing
Mhm.
process is to a painter's process or to
Yeah.
a potter's process. And that there was even the editing and the other things that I do. My end result is words,
Mhm.
right? And maybe someone else's is a painting, but the process is so
Yeah.
similar in terms of like having to tap into the creativity and some days it just not being there. Like
Yep.
you go to do something and the creativity is not coming out to play today,
Yep.
and everything you do looks terrible and you don't want it, bleh, and you throw
Yep.
that all out, right? And
Mhm.
and to hear that this wasn't just a writer thing was really cool for me. I found it to be very
Yeah.
exciting. So the fact that you're a painter and that's you have that same kind of thing, and so you would be what I would call a pantser, which is someone who paints by the seat of their pants. I write by the seat of my pants.
Oh,
I don't
yes.
have a plan when I get started.
Yeah, me either.
I just start writing. And then before long, I now know where I'm going with things. Or maybe I only know a little bit and I write until I don't know and then I have to stop for a while and then all of a sudden now I know what I'm going to do next. And you apparently are also a pantser. You don't sit down with your canvas and say, "Today I'm going to paint a," or
Mm-mm.
"Today I'm going to use these three colors," or "Today I'm going to," instead you say, "Today I'm going to paint."
Mhm.
Yeah. So you're a
Yes.
so you're a pantser.
All righty, I love that. So while I could listen to you all day, and I really, really mean that, we are coming up on the tail end. I do
Okay.
have three cliche questions that I ask everybody. However,
Super.
before that, is there anything that you wanted to discuss that you did not already have the opportunity to speak about?
I think the only thing that I like to often end with is to tell people that if you have a bucket list, throw it away. Instead, find the thing on your bucket list that you really want to do and find something today to do to start it.
Mm,
Because you don't want to leave this world with a list of things you wish you had done. You'd rather leave this world with a list of things you were currently working on.
mm.
So, That's the one thing that I would add.
I love that thought process. Okay. So you kind of answered my first question with
Oh,
that one, but I'm still going to ask because it might be different. So if you could think of a time when you were in a darker space and you were younger, what's one piece of advice that you know now that you wish you would have known at that time?
I if I could talk to my younger self, I would say remember who you are.
Mm,
Don't don't let the world and bad things that happen bury who you are.
mm,
You've got strengths, you've got abilities, you are a perfect individual as you are, and the world is going to try to tell you you're not. But
mm.
remember who you are.
Yes, 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 yes. All right, my second one is the internet works in mysterious ways, much like the creative process and everything else in the world. So we never know who is going to listen to this in the future. So, is there any person or organization or anything that you would like to work with if they were to hear this?
Oh, heavens. Yeah. I not anyone in particular, but I would love to be a public speaker. I would love
Mm,
to talk in front of um, maybe like college groups or even in workplace environments where I could talk to people about things like resilience and perseverance. And so there isn't any one particular group, but like if anyone is out there looking for a speaker, I would love that. That to me, in addition to continuing to be a writer, which I absolutely love, and a podcaster, which I absolutely love, the idea of being able to maybe affect change somehow by
mm.
sharing my experiences, I would love to do that.
Absolutely. Well, if anyone's looking, you found someone. And then the last question, of course, I'll put your link in the description and things. But if someone wants to work with you or contact you for speaking or just stay in tune, what's the best way to contact you? And then what's the best way to find your books?
Yeah, so that's actually it's the same. If you'll go to my website, which is my name, terrymBrown.com, and that's Terry with one R. On my website, you can find all my books. You can find the social media icons so that you can, wherever you are in social, I'm probably there too. I have a podcast, which you could also then see all my podcast stuff. And then I have a contact form. So, if you wanted to contact me there. Oh, and I also have a newsletter. So you could sign up for my newsletter and, hear all about the things that are going on. So definitely head to my website if there's anything about me you want to know more of.
Absolutely. Well, I can say that this was a fantastic conversation and interview. I'm going to give you yet another signature round of applause for your openness, your vulnerability, your clear mentorship, and just everything that you're doing. And I'm sending you so much good energy. And like I said, we never know who's going to listen to this. So hopefully you'll be speaking when if I see you again. But this was wonderful. And I just thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.